Shalom. My name is Yair Davidiy. I'm speaking to you from Jerusalem, the capital of Israel, the most important place in the world, according to the Bible and according to common sense. And we are going to discuss the book of Amos. We're going to give you an overview of the book of Amos and the lost 10 tribes. All of the prophets, a good portion of the Bible, speaks about the lost 10 tribes. Either speaks to the lost 10 tribes or speaks about them, or both. A lot of it also deals with Judah. There were two sections of Israel. There was Judah and there was Israel. Judah is that portion that became the present day Jews. That is the tribe of Judah, the tribe of Benjamin, most of Levi, and representative minorities from all of the other tribes. They comprise the kingdom of Judah. From them descend the core portion of the Jewish people. In addition to that, we have the 10 tribes of Israel. The 10 tribes of Israel were the majority of the Israelite peoples. They were the majority of the Israelite tribes. Numerically, they were the bulk of the Israelites. They had separated themselves from Judah. They had set up their own kingdom in the north, to the north of Judah. They were conquered by the Assyrians. The Assyrians took them away to other places, and in these other places they lost consciousness of their ancestry, and they forgot who they were, as did most peoples of the ancient world. But they stayed together. It's spoken about in prophecy. They stayed together as coherent entities, and they moved by stages to the west. They are now to be found amongst Western nations. That is what our organisation does. That is what we research. That is what we prove. And that is what we do. We spread knowledge of this and we research the subject. And we also work towards the reconciliation between Judah and the 10 tribes of Israel. And as we said, all of the prophets spoke concerning lost 10 tribes, some more than others. Some of them spoke mainly about lost 10 tribes, and some of them less so, but they all have messages for them, concerning them, and that enable us to identify them. So one of the books of the Bible concerning lost 10 tribes is the book of Amos, and he spoke concerning them quite to some extent, quite extensively. And now we're going to give you an overview of the book of Amos, with an emphasis on the lost 10 tribes, with an emphasis of the message of Amos concerning the lost 10 tribes. And Amos, he describes himself as a rancher and a breeder of flocks, of sheep, and also as sycamore trees, or a type of figs. So he was apparently a prosperous person. His hometown may have been in Judah, south of Jerusalem, but he spoke mainly concerning lost 10 tribes. Amos spoke mainly about the northern kingdom of Israel. Amos lived at the time of the northern kingdom of Israel still existed. Before their 10 tribes had been exiled, he lived. He was alive. He was contemporary with it. And he was there and he spoke about it. And Amos spoke concerning the future, but he referred also to his own present time, and also even when he spoke about his own time, in his own existence, in his day-to-day affairs or day-to-day events, often by extrapolation, these are being used as prototypical examples of what will happen in the future. So he says that Damascus will be punished, see 1:3, Amos 1:3, for devastating the Israelite area of Gilead that was east of the Jordan River in present-day countries of Jordan and Syria. Gilead was in Jordan, was now in Jordan and Syria. In the future, that will belong to Israel. And also there was Bashan, which is in the same area, but a bit further to the north and east, and that was reaching up to the Euphrates, and all of that region belongs to the lost 10 tribes, and that the region belongs to the tribes of Israel, and in the future will return to them. And the Israelites dwelt there, and the inhabitants of Damascus, that is the Arameans or Syrians we'd call them, had apparently taken advantage of the weakness of Israelites to inflict harm upon them. Damascus often in the Bible is referring not to the present-day Damascus, but to an area on the Euphrates further to the north. There were actually two cities known as Damascus, or identified with Damascus. One of them is the present-day capital of Syria. The other is, as we said, a bit further northwards. And also Amos speaks about the Philistines of Gaza and of Ashdod, the inhabitants of Ashdod, Ashkelon and Ekron, and the rest of the Philistines. It's in chapter 1. He speaks about these people who will be punished for taking the Israelites away in exile and turning them over to Edom. He also speaks about the people of Tyre. Tyre was a Phoenician city. The Phoenicians were important seafarers in that time. They had maritime enterprises all over the world, and they also mined tin in Cornwall, silver in Spain, and they had colonies throughout the Mediterranean and also in Western Europe, and they had apparently participated in exiling the Israelites, so taking the Israelites away in ships, as Amos tells us later. And so had the Philistines. The Philistines, in archaeological terms, may be identified through Mycenaean, Greek, so-called Greek, and Minoan, Cretan, so-called Cretan artifacts and findings actually relate to the Philistines, because the Philistines, together with the Phoenicians, were important seafarers at that stage, and apparently they had been taken over by Assyria, and they worked for the Assyrians, and they collaborated with the Assyrians in taking the Israelites into exile. And the Israelites, these Israelites were taken. They were taken to Spain, they were taken to Portugal, they were taken to what, Gaul or France and Holland, and also into Scandinavia, into Ireland, Britain. And those who had been taken to Spain later moved to the north and west. And we have archaeological findings that confirm what we have just told you. This is based on archaeological findings, and some of which need or rely upon our own interpretations, but others are accepted in the mainstream academic world. It is now accepted, for instance, in the mainstream academic archaeological research, that about the 700s, there was the time when the Israelites were exiled. There appeared on the eastern and southern coast of Spain the colonies of a Phoenician, northern Syrian type culture, and some of the building was identical with that found in Samaria of northern Israel, and not found elsewhere except perhaps on Cyprus. And these settlements continued. They existed for about 200 years when they disappeared. And according to Roman records, they seem to have moved from there to the northwest of Spain. And according to Irish records, and also according to archaeological findings, from the northwest of Spain they moved to Ireland and also to the British Isles, to what's now England and Scotland. And so this is what we have concerning them. The Israelites haven't been taken directly to Spain, directly to Britain and other areas in Western Europe. This relies more on legends and artifacts and our own interpretations, as will be made, as we shall explain in future articles and publications that we have, and which we have already done in part, as may be seen on our website and through our books. So Amos, getting back to Amos, tells us that Moab will be punished, the people of Moab will be punished. It says that the Jews of Judah will be punished, and he doesn't often refer to Judah, but here he does. Amos says that the Jews of Judah will be punished for not learning and for not keeping the Torah. The Jews, in other words, the Jews of Judah are expected to learn and expected to keep the Torah. And God wants the Jews to learn the Torah, like the present-day Orthodox Jews do. And you might have claims about how they do it, but they are doing what they're supposed to do. And this is something which cannot be said about everyone. Amos also condemns the northern Israelites. He says the northern Israelites, that is the 10 tribes, will be punished for lack of law enforcement and for social injustice. In other words, that is what they are supposed to do. That is what the 10 tribes are supposed to do. They are supposed to enforce social justice and social equity amongst their own people, and also to bring the Goyim, the rest of the nations, further upwards, to advance them, to evolve with them and to drag them forward, as they have done to some degree, but apparently not enough, and they are liable, God forbid, to be punished for being remiss in fulfilling their own duties, God-given goals. We have articles on this, and this is what Amos is implying, and there are other biblical sources that confirm this interpretation. Amos also says that the lost 10 tribes, or the 10 tribes, will be exiled. They were punished for lack of family propriety and sexual immorality. See chapter 2. Also for business dishonesty, again in chapter 2. It says that God reminds them that he had destroyed the Amorites, that is the Canaanite peoples who were before them, who were tall and stronger and more powerful than they, and God had destroyed them before the Israelites when they came in to possess the land, so they should show some gratitude. And so too we should remember that when the present day inhabitants of North America came into the land, it was inhabited by Red Indians, Amerindians, who were fierce warriors and potent and powerful, much more than we realise, much more than we appreciate. And these descendants of Israelites were unable to overcome them and to settle in their place. So this is worth remembering. We are also told by Amos in chapter 2 that the young people of Israel were often inspired. They were inspired to go on the right path, but the elders pushed them aside. The elders were the ones who put them down and did not encourage them, but just the opposite, discouraged them. Young people today often want to go on the right path. They want to know the Bible, they want to know the truth, and we should encourage this. And the knowledge of God was pushed aside, and they will be punished. The Israelites will be punished for this. Also, we should realise in the day of punishment, all our military preparations will not help us. Our warriors will flee away, God forbid. They will run away naked. 2:16. Perhaps this is implying, as other verses in the Bible do, chemical warfare or nuclear radiation, when they have to strip off their clothes in order to be due to what has been done to them. We've seen pictures of this in other places, God forbid. We should note that special favours and protection have been shown unto us, and therefore we have correspondingly extra obligations. God has favoured us and helped us and blessed us, therefore we have had extra obligations, extra deeds, more has been expected of us, and if we do not fulfil what has been expected of us, we will be punished. This is the warning of Amos. And Amos also calls to the non-Israelite nations to repent, as well as the Israelite ones. And he says that violence and robbery are to be condemned, and no nation should be allowed it. He also says that the great houses and the mansions of northern Israel will be destroyed. He says that the women folk of the Israelites of Bashan and Samaria, that is the northern Israelites, have exorbitant demands on their husbands, and they have wasteful lifestyles, and they force their husbands to do things that are immoral, that are not correct, in order to satisfy the wants of their women folk. So Amos condemns them for this. He says that the Israelites will be taken away in stages. He predicted the exile of the lost 10 tribes. He predicted that they would be exiled. And he says how they will be exiled. And he says they will be taken away, one portion of them in different types of shipping vessels. He describes these vessels. One vessel is called a fish. There was a fish boat known in Cyprus, a large boat. They will be taken away in such boats, a portion of them, whereas others of them will be taken away to the area of Manai or Armenia, where we do find the Israelites were taken to, the lost Israelites were taken to that area, as we have explained elsewhere, where they became part of the Scythian and the Cimmerian forces, and from there they moved to the north into what is now southern Russia, and by stages they were pushed westward, or they moved westward into Western Europe, and their descendants are now in those regions. And we are warned by Amos to seek God and live, and do not look after pagan syncretism. And this is what he says in chapter 5. In chapter 4 we are told that God knows our innermost thoughts. There's no hiding from God. And Israel must prepare to meet its God. Getting back to chapter 5, we're told to seek God and live. We're also warned that much of our prosperity is dishonest. It is derived from the oppression of others, and therefore we may not long enjoy it. But if you seek God, and you seek good, seek to do good and not evil, God will be with you. And the remnant of Joseph is called upon to hate evil and love the good, and establish judgment in your settlements. 5:15. And if we are not careful, the end times will bring a tribulation, and that we should not want to happen. And God is not pleased with the way we worship. And again in chapter 5. And he describes the gods. One was called Sikkoth, another Kium, and perhaps Saturn. And the Israelites had word destined to be taken away beyond the Euphrates River, beyond Damascus, the city of Damascus according to Amos, which is on the Euphrates. And those who dwell in Zion, that is possibly the present-day Israelis, the Jewish Israelis, they dwell in what is now Zion, called Zion, but they trust in the mountain of Samaria. See chapter 6, and perhaps by mountain of Samaria is referring to America, because Samaria was the area of the 10 tribes. It was the capital, the center of those 10 tribes. It was dominated by the tribe of Manasseh, and we find a good portion of Manasseh amongst the US population. And Judah, that is the Jews, the inhabitants of Zion, are being warned not to trust too much in the mountain of Samaria, and they are condemned for doing so. So that perhaps that is a warning for the state of Israel not to rely too much on the USA, because the USA may not be able to stand by us in our time of trouble. And back then Amos already foresaw this. And the 10 tribes are being warned that they shall go into captivity. When the excellence of Jacob, that is the Union Jack, the UK, the Yankees, whose name Yankees comes from Jacob, that is abhorred, 6:8 in chapter 6. There will come a time of mass slaughter, and recalling the name of the God of Israel will be forbidden, 6:10. And we shall think we are strong because we have just defeated walkover, easily to defeat opponents. We are deluding ourselves according to Amos. And a nation is liable to rise against us that will afflict us throughout our border. Enemies are liable to come upon us, God forbid. And this is Amos is warning us. The calamity will be so great that we fear that Jacob will never be able to recover. But God will relent and leave us something to grow from, as it says in chapter 7. Amos was warned to cease from prophesying at Brit-Am, which is in the capital of the northern kingdom of Israel, or one of the centers, one of the major cultic centers. And Amos replied, and he prophesied against the northern kingdom of the 10 tribes, and he referred to it as Israel and the high house of Isaac, and even Isaac Ishchak he calls it. Beit Ishchak, he pronounces it differently. He pronounces it similarly to how the name of the Scythians was pronounced. And in Isaac will your name be called. That was a prophecy given to the forefather Isaac, and to Abraham was told that in Isaac, and in the name of his son, will your seed be called. And we find the name Isaac repeated in different names given to the Scythians, such as Isakuli, the exiles of Isaac, Izohach, and Skati, and also Saxon and Scott. All these names ultimately are derivatives of the name Isaac, Yitzchak. And Amos tells us that concerning the end times, that celestial disturbances will take place. There will be signs in the heavens. And in chapter 8, it says people will seek the truth and will not find it. The idols of Samaria, that is the USA, and of Dan, in Scandinavia, and Beersheba, the Irish, will be cast aside. And though you make shelters deep in the earth and send ships out into space, calamity will overtake you if you do not repent, as it says in chapter 9. So even though we indulge in space travel, we dig atomic bomb shelters and so on, the calamity is still coming. Should be aware of this. And God asks in chapter 9, what makes you, Israel? What makes you better than other peoples? Other peoples have suffered. Other peoples have been destroyed. What difference is there between you and other peoples? What makes you better than them? You will be faced with a certain disaster. Here he may be talking to the lost 10 tribes before their time in exile, because then it says that during the time of exile, the house of Israel, the descendants of the Israelites from the 10 tribes, will be sifted like a sieve. Even though they were exiled and moving from one area to another, there will be like seeds in a sieve, which precious jewels in a sieve, which God will sift and look for and keep them, no matter where they are. And we are also. It is also proper that despite the calamities that overtake the Israelites, there will still be sinners who will continue to sin and will not pay heed to the fact that God Almighty is warning them. Nevertheless, in the end times, the kingdom of David will be restored. That is the future Messiah. In chapter 11, we're told about this. And the Israelites will take possession of the rest of the world, and they will be beginning with Europe. They will take over the lands of Edom, that is Western Europe and Central Europe. They will control them. The exiles of the Israelites will return after conquering the other nations. And after their return, the Israelites will never be exiled again. So this is what is going to happen. This is an overview. The details on our website as we go through chapter, verse by verse, and give the explanations and tell you how we reach the conclusions we have. And even if you disagree or do not, it does not resonate with what you already know, there is something in what we are saying. It is worth checking out. It is worth looking into. May the Lord God of Israel bless all of us. Thank you.